Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Arch Bell. I'm with the Striker Texas, and welcome to the Texas Soccer Summit, hosted by the Striker Texas. Yes, the one and only, from the Permian Basin to the Piney Woods, from Amarillo to Port Isabel, everywhere in between. This is where you get your Texas soccer information from the Striker Texas at the rate of $5.99 a month. What a bargain. So you can't have a better deal when it comes to soccer news and information in the great state of Texas. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things regarding Texas and soccer, and specifically our MLS teams in the state of Texas. And very pleased to be joined this afternoon by representatives from two of those teams, from FC Dallas and Austin FC. Joining us is Andre Zanotta, technical director of FC Dallas, and then Sean Rubio of Austin FC, the director of player personnel for Austin FC. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
Very well. Thank you, Arch. Very happy to be here.
Well, fantastic. It's great to have y'all. Pat Onstad, general manager of the Houston Dynamo, was slotted to join us. Unfortunately, Pat had he had to back out at the last minute. We could speculate all we want about what it might be. Who knows? But certainly the Houston Dynamo have been in among the transfer rumors lately. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up going on with Pat Onstad at the end of the day. But unfortunately, Pat was unable to join us. But we're very pleased to have both Andre and Sean joining us for this session. And the session, how Texas teams plan to improve in 2022. And 2021, it was a year that it was a tough one for Texas soccer fans, Texas MLS fans. But I think brighter things are headed the way for the Lone Star State in 2022. And guys, let's just kind of start there as the topic of this session: how Texas teams plan to improve in 2022. And Andre, we can start with you. A very open-ended question: how do you see how FC Dallas has improved itself in this new year in 2022?
Well, Arch, yeah, I think I can speak on behalf of the three clubs. It was a frustrating season for all the Texans teams. We had a different expectation at the beginning of the season. Things didn't go our way, and but the good thing is we had a good off season. We believe here it was a very important off season, especially for us, that we had a new head coach coming in, a new coaching staff. We signed new players, and one of the things is that we believe we can bounce back this season and be and have a whole different season than last year, is the quality of the head coach that we have, the coaching staff, and the players that we signed. We invested more money than ever in the history of the club to sign new players. We believe we got the pieces that we wanted, and we had a very good preseason, and we feel very good about what we have right now, the moment we are right now to start the season. So I think all we needed to do, not only investing in players and the coaching staff, but also in equipment and in bringing new tools to the club. So all of this we did to provide players, staff, the best conditions ever, and in our club here, and we believe this will help us be stronger and more competitive in 2022.
That's great. Andre and Sean, I would just pose to you the same question. Austin FC, how has Austin FC planned to improve itself in 2022?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's actually our first off season, sort of, right? So,
No.
having gone through obviously our inaugural season, this is our first chance to build upon that. And I mean, the first thing, honestly, is having a group in place for the off season, right? While we were still building last off season, whether it's players being able to spend more time in the market in the off season and kind of hit the ground running for preseason, Obviously evolving the roster and sort of building a recruitment plan based on sort of our analysis of where we might have struggled in 2021. Those two things combined, I think the staff and players continuing to come together after a challenging first season, obviously, and then again adding quality players across the field to sort of supplement that for 2022.
Guys, I would think you fans take a look at the two teams and have seen, a lot of improvements to the squad, some investment, adding depth, things like that. Specifically, Andre, FC Dallas, making headlines with some recent additions. Talk about Paul Arriola, the United States national team, and really one of the more promising young players out of South America, and Alan Velasco, who comes in from Independiente of Argentina. Those additions, it's I mean, it's a little bit of a different FC Dallas this winter than perhaps maybe we've seen in recent seasons. Can you kind of elaborate more on what went into FC Dallas's offseason and going after those specific players who have come into the squad?
Sure, Arch. So what this is all we obviously we were planning the off season just way ahead. We knew the way that the season was going, and it was getting tougher and tougher for us to reach the playoffs. So we were expediting the decisions that we had to make and the planning for 2022. And one of the things that it happened in mid-September. We 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 let Lucci go, and we started discussing a new coach, and it was a long process, as it should be, I believe, to search for the right person for that role. But one of the things that happened during the off season that wasn't planned was the transfer of Pepe. As long as we had a lot of rumors and a lot of clubs questioning us and speculating and interested in Pepe, our idea was to keep him for a little bit longer. And but the situation, the desire of the player to go to Europe, and the numbers that were increasing for us, and was in the end was a very good deal for FC Dallas, for the player, and I believe for Augsburg as well, that they have a very talented young player that I'm sure he will have success in Europe. So we had to change a little bit that strategy. So once we sold Pepe for the amount that was, we decided to be much more aggressive in the market, and try to replace him, Pepe, because we for his position we felt we were already covered. We have a Jesus Ferreira that is fighting with Pepe for his spot in the national team. We have Franco Jara, so we have very high level number nines right now competing for that position. But we decided to bring other attacking players that would help our team be stronger on that front. So Paul was an opportunity that came to us. It's a player that I don't need to say his quality and what he's done all in MLS and with Mexican, what's experience in Mexico. He's been successful in MLS, playing for the national team. So, and then Velasco was a player that we've been following for a while, and he was in the past was some numbers that we wouldn't be possible for us, and with the situation in with the club that he was, and they were accepting a lower amount, so we felt that now it's possible. Now is the moment that if we want to try this player, we must do it now, and I'm glad we made it happen. So so this was the Pepe transfer was really the main point that triggered our change of strategy in the market to be more aggressive and bring players of that caliber.
Very interesting that in the previous winter, it was Cecilio Dominguez joining Austin FC from Independiente of Argentina, and now Alan Velasco joining FC Dallas from Independiente. So a club that has actually seen two high-profile arrivals to Texas MLS teams. And Sean, Andre was talking about Ricardo Pepi leaving for Germany. Austin FC had a significant departure as well. I wouldn't say departure, I would just say a loaning out in Tomas Pochettino, a player that the club brought in from Talleres de Cordoba, a high-profile signing, and has been loaned back to River Plate. But that was part of a strategy, I think, from the outside looking in, to kind of reshape the Austin FC midfield. You bring in Johan Valencia and some other key pieces. Felipe Martins is another one. Can you talk to a little bit about that Austin FC midfield and some of the moving parts that happened this winter at the club?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's not unlike what Andre mentioned with Pepe, just in terms of it was really an opportunity that benefited everyone. You know, for Tomas to go back to Argentina, and not just to back Argentina, but to River Plate. I mean, that's a global club, and so for him, it's a great opportunity. For us, it gave us flexibility. You know, we were able to bring in Johan Valencia, who we think can bring some of the qualities that maybe we were missing as a group. And again, obviously for River Plate, they get a player that you know, for them has helped them early in the season already. Tomas has been contributing for them, so yeah, it was really a win-win-win, I think, for everyone to sort of take that step, and for us, again, we can use that to make other adjustments and reinforcements on the field.
Absolutely, and it'll be interesting to see, you know, the effect of that, and as the MLS season starts this weekend. Andre, going back to Alan Velasco, you mentioned that this is a player you've been following for a while. Take us a little bit into that process of identifying the player and then, you know, getting it across the finish line to make this team a better team in 2022. Take us a little bit behind that process, and what were the qualities that really stood out about this young player?
So Alan's a player that's been involved in youth teams of Argentina. He's playing in high level, and he's the player with more. He's the player under 20 with more minutes in the Argentinian league than any other player. So he's a player very young with a lot of experience playing at a very high level, and he has some qualities that we don't have here in our group. So he's one-on-one dribbling, his vision of the game. So he does that with a lot of speed, and so it was a player that his characteristics are we don't have it in the team, and we thought. And besides being amazing talent, I met him, so we searched a lot about him, and knew about his qualities, his how his character, and everything combined together. We just felt it was a perfect fit for us, and we are constantly improving our scouting process here. We obviously trying to sign players is not easy. Sean knows well how difficult it is for you to get all the player, and you will only really know the player once he's here, right? So you get the technical, you watch many games, and the physical side of him, the mental aspect, you try to get as much information as you can, but still you, as I said, you'll know him once he's here. So we've watched many games, and we have our scouts here working and following him, as I said, and just watching many games. And I was in constant contact with his agent, just trying to understand when the opportunity would come, that his price would go down, and would allow us to approach Independiente and try to get a deal. And we presented him the opportunity. He was right away. He shared with the coaching staff and was unanimous that it would be amazing if we can bring this player. So and then negotiation wasn't easy. It took a long time because it's a high level player. It's a player that from Independiente Academy. They have a very strong link with him there, and and one great thing about MLS is attracting more and more players of that profile. So when Velasco saw other similar players like him, they're already here, and seeing how, as I mentioned about Pepe, but so many others recently have been making the move from MLS to Europe, he really felt it was time for his next move coming to MLS and be successful here with us. And he believed in the project, the team that we have, and uh, and 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 now we're just waiting to see him on the field now.
You know, Andre, you said something and it provoked a smile out of Sean. You're talking about players, you know, you don't really know them until they actually arrive, until they get to the club. And Sean, you smiled at that because it sounds like, you know, there's been, you know, that kind of resonates at Austin FC. And especially last year, you had so many guys coming in from, you know, all over the world. They joined the team, a new team. Now, like you mentioned earlier, a full preseason. You have guys who are just used to living in Austin, like used to being either in the United States or in Austin. Um, some young guys like Rodney Redis, like that, just having that 1 year underneath their belt in a new place. I mean, how big is that, and how much of a factor can that be to having a much more successful year two?
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, I would even say you look at our recruitment this year, right? Guys like Maxi Urruti, Ethan Finley, Felipe Martins, like you're almost, we haven't had them with our group necessarily, but you talk to people around the league who they've worked with, and you can get a better sense for who they are as people versus international transfers, where, to Andre's point, you can speak with players before you sign them and things like that, but you don't really know. When you stay within MLS, and Dallas has done it with Paul similarly, right? You have a bit more intel and due diligence on the person, and I think that's one of the reasons why you see in the league teams that stay within the league at times can be quite successful. I mean, there's a few teams that have predominantly done that in the last few years. So I think that's where the staying within MLS component of recruitment can help, because it's less of an unknown of how a player is going to fit in within a group, and what their mentality and personality might be.
That's, yeah, very interesting. And Andre, talking about new faces and everything, you have a new coach there in FC Dallas, as you mentioned earlier, Nico Estevez. When a new coach comes in, players have to prove themselves kind of all over again. There's a new dynamic, there's new training schedules, methods, things like that. Everything kind of changes. Just from your perspective, how has that gone so far at the club, and where do you see Nico being able to make inroads with this FC Dallas team?
It's going really well, really well. I had already high expectations having bringing Nico here, but he's been amazing. Nico is very like he's. I know Greg for a while. Greg Berhalter. He's been working with Greg. He works with Greg in the last 7 years, and he has a lot of similarities with Greg. And so just and Austin has another assistant coach. I was speaking with well, Pat was from Columbus. They have Asher and Josh in Austin. So all those guys from Columbus crew that were working with Greg at that time, now they're spread in Texas team. So, but Nico, some very important improvements here in the club. He brings so many good ideas. We're super excited with him and his work. Preseason went really well. He brought three new people to work with him here. Ben Cross, that was an assistant coach in Columbus Crew, is now here with us, and Javier Cabello, an assistant coach that worked with Nico in Spain. He was in Deportivo Alaves and now here also with us. And we brought a new head of performance, Miguel Villagrasa, who's now he worked with Nico in Valencia and is doing a tremendous job as well here. So the players felt it from moment one, the changes, and I feel very positive energy. I hear the comments from players from the staff that was already here. that they're really happy with the changes we made and with having Nico now. So I think that's what I mentioned before. It's important to have a long period to decide on the new coach, because that's one different than players, but coach is the one that like you cannot miss. You need to get it right, because players sometimes they need longer time to adapt. You have another player to replace him at some point, but coaches like he must fit right in, and that's what happened with Nico.
And speaking of new coaches, last year Josh Wolfe was a new coach in MLS. His first job as a head coach. I mean, a very unique situation, Sean, in which you have a first-time head coach leading up an expansion franchise. So a lot going on there. Usually with expansion teams, you see guys who maybe have previous experience, like an Adrian Heath or somebody, or Jason Christ. But Austin FC trusted in Josh Wolfe, and that first season, I'm sure there are a lot of things that Josh learned, and that learning process from year one to year two, I imagine, has been pretty significant. How have you seen Josh evolve just as a coach, just in this 1 year?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think the benefit of Josh being included and on board so early was he really was helpful in the first build out of the roster, right? I don't know, with every expansion team, sometimes you're signing players before the coach comes in, and I don't
Yeah.
strategically that can be challenging, right? If that doesn't necessarily match. So I think having Josh in from the beginning was hugely helpful for his vision and style of play, and we can sort of help put a roster together that speaks to that, right? Rather than having to kind of go backwards or sort of make adjustments on the fly based on a coach coming in after some of the players have been signed. So that was sort of the initial piece. And in terms of his evolution, I mean, it just comes through experience, right? I mean, again, I would go back to like this being our first real off season. So that means we already have a preseason under our belts, not just Josh, but collectively. We have a building, a beautiful facility that we get to spend our entire preseason in rather than move in, a couple weeks before the season starts. So all of those things, just every time that you do them, or for Josh, every time he does them, he's going to learn from them, and he's got a huge appetite to grow and improve and evolve, and yeah, he's been great.
Both of y'all are very smart guys, intelligent guys. Went to good schools. I mean, I majored in fraternity, so I really can't say too much. But both of y'all are both, very very smart guys. And I want to get into a little bit about data and analytics and how those drive decisions in regards to players, personnel, things like that. Andre, you know, what is the approach from FC Dallas and with the use of data and analytics in terms of determining players and determining other footballing matters within the squad?
So it's something else that obviously we, as I mentioned, we try to gather as many players, and data. I think it's a very important component of that equation when we're deciding what players to bring. Now we have so much information available, so many statistics and numbers that we can compare, and different tools. So we use that a lot. It's not the main factor that will make us decide purely on those numbers and the data. Obviously, we still believe a lot in what the eyes tells us, but I think more and more we're using data every year uh, when we're deciding on the players, when we're filtering players. Data is the main one that starts to narrow down the players that we're gonna have in a final list. So and before just making more time in videos, more time in watching games, and bringing that to the coaching staff. So we believe this a lot here. It's something that we want to keep improving and investing on tools that helps us to analyze the players better and try to minimize mistakes. But as I said, we try to combine also with the, let's say, more traditional analysis and watching a lot of games and based on as Sean mentioned before about Josh, the style of play. So it's something that it can indicate, but when you watch, especially when the coach it just makes want to make sure that the player fits well the system that he wants to use here.
And Sean, along those same lines, you're the Austin FC. What's the approach there using data analysis and analytics to make decisions about players and other things?
Yeah, no, I mean it's a big part of what we do. I mean, across high performance, sort of football performance and, scouting and recruitment, we use it a lot across all those areas. I mean, as just an example, is like when we were looking at this offseason and what our plans were on the recruitment side, we didn't score a ton of goals last year, but our expected goals were actually like around league average. And so our expected goals conceded were below average, as were our goals conceded. So we that's a small example, but just idea of like that's going to help us drive, okay, where really do we need to improve and what are we going to focus on? And obviously we want to improve defensively, add bite, add competition and depth. And, at some level you can, in theory, you look at data to sort of bear out what it is exactly you want to do. And then when it comes to the actual recruitment piece, I kind of think of it like Andre said, for me, it's a two-way street. You can either start with the data and use that as that first filtering device based on certain metrics or player profiles or whatever it is, or the reverse. If a scout identifies a player, they give you the name, and then you can go look at their data sort of more on an ad hoc basis and see, what is the scout saying versus what is the data saying. It can be a valuable way to quote unquote watch, a lot of games in a short period of time by just summarizing and using data. So I think it can go in either direction, rather as a starting point or as a piece of due diligence as you're sort of considering an option for a player.
Andre, another thing that I wanted to touch on was the balancing act that a club like FC Dallas has in terms of players and when to sell or not to sell, and going for a title, going for a championship, or selling a player which perhaps it might impact or hinder your chances to win a title. It's a delicate balancing act because you have the wishes of the player, everything within the front office, transfer fees, and then you also have the fans. You have a number of fans who perhaps express their displeasure that, oh, such and such player got sold, and now we might take a step back this year. Things like that. How do you manage that balancing act while still telling the fans, we are going to contend in 2022? Yes, we know we sold a popular and a great player like Ricardo Pepi, but FC Dallas is here to contend and to go for titles in 2022 while still respecting the wishes of perhaps of some players who might want to go to Europe to prove themselves over there. How do you balance all of those things?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it's not easy. It's not easy. But I think what we did now after selling Pepe is just to show our fans that we're committed we're selling players, but we're committed to invest and make a strong team. And signing Velasco, signing Paul, bringing Nanu, Martin Pais, the goalkeeper. So all those signings, I think and I mentioned this before in previous interviews that we wanted to send a message to the fans, to the league, to our opponents that we're going to compete. I think it hurt us. We lost some players that uh, were important that hurt our performance, and it's tough, and it's tough, as you said. There is a lot of things involved when you have a transfer offer, the desire of the player, the opportunity for the club, and I think we have been 2019 since I got here. We we sold a player every window except winter 2020. So
Wow.
it's hard to so we sold Chris Richards in January 2019. Carlos Grueso in summer 2019, and then January we didn't, but and then the summer of 2020 sold Reggie, Cannon, Zidane, Kondrasek, and then the January 2021 was sold Brian Reynolds, and then the summer 2021 was sold Tanner Tasman. So obviously this will affect. We sold two right backs in 6 months, Reggie and Brian Reynolds.
Yeah.
So it's hard to. We sold Reggie because we were sure that we had a good replacement. We didn't know he would do so well at a point that Roma would be interested after just playing 15 games for us, but those kind of opportunities that we felt we got to take. But losing Brian Reynolds wasn't something not planned. So we learned and we improved for the following year, and but at the same time, we feel really proud of seeing so many good players coming from our academy, being in Europe, playing top leagues in Europe. Not we also have three players on loan now. So 3 years ago we were only loaning players to USL teams. We had and USL teams with all the respect, but it's not a great window for our players. We have to pay the salary of the player, and now we have just the time Bundesliga first division in Germany last weekend. Dan Cecily playing for PSV, and we have Thomas. Such a great window and playing at high level in Europe.
And Sean, I know Austin FC is in a different age, more in the infancy of the club and everything. So FC Dallas, they just signed their 33rd homegrown today. That was announced. Austin FC obviously in a different time frame, but Claudio Reyna, who has been a firm believer in providing those opportunities for young players to develop and then go over to Europe. He did that obviously with New York City FC. Joe Scally, a prime example of that, and now brings that same kind of mentality to Austin FC. Is that, I mean, kind of what Andre was talking about? Do you think Austin FC will develop a similar approach in that vein with fielding a competitive team, but still providing those opportunities for players who do wish to go overseas?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you mentioned it, but with Claudio, it's really a player first environment here, right? So it goes back to, again, even the Pepis and Pochettinos of the world of, if there's an opportunity that a player feels really strongly about, and of course it has to make sense for the club, then, of course we would want to respect that and have it be, again, sort of a win-win for everyone as much as possible. But yeah, I mean, we are in a bit of a different phase, right? We're still building out our U17 group, let alone signing dozens of homegrowns. But yeah, as those opportunities sort of evolve, even into MLS Next Pro, which we'll be joining in 2023, I don't see us standing in the way of players, if that's something that they want to take on, finding opportunities, whether it's just a training opportunity, loan, transfer. Yeah, I think we'll be more than happy. Again, it obviously has to make sense for the club, but we would want to accommodate players, hopes and dreams.
Well, and one of the interesting things with having a third team in MLS now is, I mean, there's such a great dynamic now among the fans. And with that great dynamic, there's some trash talking. There is, some interaction, shall we say, some fun interaction, whether it's on social media or even at the games with teams traveling and their fan bases and everything. It makes for a fun, competitive environment, and it increases the pressure as well on these players and teams to perform. And we see where one team might go to another team's stadium, specifically in the state of Texas, and another team gets a win. But that's the type of healthy pressure that I think both clubs welcome warmly. I mean, would you agree to that, Andre? Just the stakes are now a little bit higher with three teams in Texas, and bragging rights are definitely much more important.
Absolutely, yeah. we went to play in Austin, and the atmosphere is amazing. Like, it's such a great stadium. The fans are they already seem so passionate about the club. And even when we played uh, Austin here at home the first time, many fans came from Austin to watch the game. So I think it helps our state, the soccer culture here to be stronger. And we already have this rivalry with Houston, and it's good to have Austin now sharing this with us, and I think it's just going to be good for to make the 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 teams stronger. I think we're gonna push Austin. Austin's gonna push us. We're gonna push Houston. Houston's gonna push us. So I think this will benefit everyone, and hopefully the three of us can make to the playoffs. And we have one team from Texas winning the league this year. Hopefully FC Dallas, obviously.
And Sean, to that point, just healthy pressure. Austin FC fans, they've already shown, their loyalty coming out to the stadium, filling up Q2, traveling to away games, things like that. But the expectations are also very high. Within Austin FC, do you all feel that healthy pressure coming from the fan base? Like, they're going to support, but they also want to see results.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think even whether it's Josh or Alex Ring, some of the players have talked about, like, the fans, they give us everything they have, and it's on us to sort of reciprocate that, right? And I think you'll see that on the field. But for sure, it's a healthy pressure. I mean, I would even say, to Andre's point, like, I love watching our academy games against the other Texas MLS teams. That's, to me, even at the academy level, you can feel those games take on a different flavor and meaning, rather than, playing, with all due respect, whether it's other MLS teams or just other clubs locally, right? When you're playing against Dallas or Houston, the players understand that there's a little bit of a different ask on the table, right? Or there's a different meaning to those types of games. So I think when you can get that at the academy level, it's only natural that you'll see it, obviously, with the first teams and the fan bases and everything else. So yeah, having two rivals, let's say, in the state, I see it as just twice as many opportunities, especially in the academy, to really benchmark yourself against, obviously, some of the best, academies in the country.
Yeah, this is a state, of course, that will have maybe 40,000, 50,000 show up for a Texas high school football championship game in the Dallas Metroplex. Maybe we should just take all the Texas teams and just create our own league, and then it would be the best league in the world, because Texas is so competitive. Perhaps maybe one day we could do that. I'm just kidding. We don't have to do that. So Andre, kind of going back to that first question, FC Dallas improving in 2022. You listed a lot of things. Why? I mean, where do you see this team going? I mean, playoff bound. Can you give us a stamp guarantee from yourself that FC Dallas is going to the playoffs in 2022?
Obviously, that's our goal. I think the first goal for every team in the league is to make the playoffs. And once we're there, we want to make the playoffs. We want to play the playoff game at home, and we know the playoffs is a whole different count. So you see what happened with Real Salt Lake last year. They qualified in almost the last minute, in seventh, and they made it to the final, playing away against Seattle, away against Kansas City, and they were advancing. So our goal this season is to fight back and to be in the playoffs, and I think we have the quality in the team, and the staff to make that happen, to be back. We are a team that is used to be in the playoff every year. So we wanna be again this year. We know it's not easy. The teams have invested, not only the teams in Texas, also Houston is not here, but Houston invested, I think, the club record in signing a new striker, and other teams have done the same. So it's not going to be easy, but I think we know what it takes to be in playoffs. We know what we did wrong last year, and what we need to improve this year to be in that position again in 2022.
And Sean, I'll give you the same space. You can. This is your time to call the shot. Austin FC is playoff bound in 2022. You ready to put your name on it? You can send it to Claudio and let Josh know as well, right?
Yeah, and we could just fast forward. I think that would make everyone's life real easy. No, that's the hope, of course. I mean, we've even talked in terms of goals or what we're trying to accomplish. We'd love a home playoff game. Everyone I think is well aware at this point of where our stadium atmosphere, and again the fans are incredible, sell out every game, everything else. So if we can get a home playoff game, now that's obviously even loftier than just making the playoffs. Making the playoffs is sort of the first step, but if we can go beyond that, it's really having that home support behind us would be incredible. I mean, like every team, we analyzed what we sort of were our key takeaways from last season. We built a recruitment plan around that, whether it's sort of defensive stability, a little bit of bite and mentality, and guys that are, willing to put in the hard yards who we think we brought in, and, some domestic signings, some international signings. And yeah, I mean, I think, anyone who watched us last year and then understands the type of profiles of players we brought in, I'd like to think there's sort of a thread there. And there's a lot of sort of logic that goes into why we're making these particular signings, and then we'll see how it goes. It is tough, right? I mean, it really is. It's a tough league. It's a tough conference. There aren't a ton of easy games, I would say, by any stretch of the imagination. So we've definitely gotten better, and we're ready to compete, and we're definitely excited for our home opener here this weekend.
Andre, who's going to win Copa Tejas?
So we joke here internally. We won last year, and our season was terrible. So we're it's the curse of the La Copita. So we say the curse of La Copita. We organized, the three of us, Claudio and Matt Jordan was in Houston at that time. We spent a lot of time organizing this and having some meaningful games and adapting to the pandemic. And the three of us didn't make to the playoffs. So I'm not very concerned about winning Copa Tejas this year. I think the goal is start Saturday now against Toronto, and we need to get those 3 points immediately.
And Sean, same question. Well, I mean, who wants to win? Maybe the question is, who wants to win Copa Tejas then?
Well, I do think we want to win it, only because that means we might end up higher in the table. So it's I guess a different version of the same answer, right? Whatever it takes to win. I mean, trophies are good, but yeah, I mean, anything that's going to put points on the board for us is obviously we're going to compete for that.
Well, gentlemen, we're wrapping up. This is your time to take a shot at Houston. Pat's not here to defend himself, so if you want to let it rip, I mean, you could talk bad about the Dynamo. You could talk bad about the city and how they have the worst traffic or the weather or whatever. So feel free, let it rip. If you want to take a shot at Houston, the forum is all yours.
It's all you, Andre. I
pass. No, we have they were here. They were here last Saturday, and we had a good game. It was I'm glad we won, but they have a good team, and no, let's focus on us only, and I know Pat and Asher, they have a lot of work there as well, as just like we do, like Sean and Claudio, to fix the things from last year and now have a much better season this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Pat Onstad, just a new GM there in Houston. Some key off-season signings. Sebastian Ferreira from Paraguay. So I'll be curious to see how he does. Again, just this trend of South American players just continuing to come to MLS. Of course, Austin FC and both FC Dallas know a lot about that. But I think we can all agree that after kind of licking our wounds in 2021, the great state of Texas is going to enjoy a much more prolific and fruitful 2022 with its 3 MLS teams. So we're all going to be looking forward to that. So guys, I can't thank you enough. Andre Zanotta, Technical Director of FC Dallas, Sean Rubio, Director of Player Personnel at Austin FC. Guys, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Arch. It was
Thanks, Andre.
great
Thanks,
pleasure
Judge.
to be
Appreciate
here.
it.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, you guys take care, and best of luck in your opening weekend this weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.